俺の財宝か？欲しけりゃくれてやる。探せ！この世のすべてをそこに置いてきた。
Yo guys, and welcome to this new video. So after the greatness Oda expressed in the chapter about Yasuye's death, we have again, in my opinion, an incredibly amazing chapter, this time focused on the greatness of the protagonist and the most important character of the story, Monkey D. Luffy. But before discussing all this greatness in detail, let me say that I publish new videos every week, so make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell to always know when I upload something new. Alright, with that said, let's jump straight into it. So with this probably last chapter entirely focused on Udon, Oda finally made clear what he wanted to express in this last phase about the fall of the prison. Now, to understand what this is, remember that one of the things making One Piece superior is that fights a lot of the times, and I'd say most of the times, are not fought physically, in the sense that they are not duels and battles in the standard shonen interpretation of the term, but instead they are fought in an indirect way, which makes them much more meaningful, and most of Oda's greatness lays in how he's capable to make these sort of fights just as epic and, in my opinion, even more than the standard ones. Indeed, often these clashes of ideals are what create that very epic atmosphere surrounding the final major battles of each arc and saga, and they are also the true reason why this manga can inspire its readers much more than, I'd say, any other series, in a way that can really improve the way you approach your life. The greatest example I can think of, which is also one of the reasons why the Skypiea saga is my favorite in One Piece, is the way Luffy and Zoro didn't react to Bellamy in that bar in Mock Town, which Oda managed to make even more amazing, associating that passage with the epic introduction of Blackbeard. And the last of the many examples we can find all over One Piece of this characteristic way of fighting is what we see in this chapter. Indeed, the fight to conquer Udon ended up being not a fight between Luffy's group and the Beast Pirates, but instead Oda made it a fight between Luffy's spirit and the broken hearts of the prisoners. Now, I think the best way to start this discussion is actually to try to understand why Luffy fought this battle. Indeed, while reading One Piece, we have always to remember that Luffy is no hero. Luffy doesn't fight to make the world a better place. Luffy doesn't fight to protect the weak against injustice. Luffy doesn't fight because otherwise people would suffer. Luffy is a pirate. Luffy fights for his own personal interest to become the freest man in the world. Luffy fights to become the king of the sea. Luffy fights according to his own whims and to remain loyal to his own ideals and principles. And even if everywhere the Mugiwaras go, in the end they end up solving the problems of that place, we have always to keep in mind the reasons why they're acting that way. And a very effective example is, in my opinion, what Luffy said to Crocodile in Alabasta in occasion of their last fight. Indeed, he said that if Vivi was to abandon the country, then he and his crew would have abandoned it as well. But this is something that has so many examples because Oda continuously tries to express this key concept of his series. For example, in this chapter, the reason why Luffy didn't want the prisoners to be shot with the virus is not simply because he wanted to defend them, but instead, more precisely, because being hungry, they were already weak and so they couldn't fight properly to defend themselves. And since the beast pirates were shooting them to hit Luffy himself, just staying put and watching that happening is something no honorable warrior would ever do, especially someone as respectful of the other's freedom as Luffy has always been, which is also something particularly fitting this country of honorable warriors, the land of samurai. And so this principle, combined with Chopper's impossibility to accept as a doctor an infectious disease used as a weapon, is the meaningful source of their heavy stamp combo attack. However, these actions, in the eyes of prisoners who don't even consider fighting back a possibility anymore, and so that have accepted their life being their daily slave routine in Udon, can only mean more sufferance, because in their minds a rebellion, even if impossibly strong, will only bring defeat. And so the only possible outcome is a sufferance directly proportionate to how much they defy the opponent they don't consider possible to beat, Kaido. And so we see again how the real problem in Wano, the real enemy who by showing his overwhelming power annihilated the fighting spirit and resolution of every single opposer all over the country, is only the Yonko. Since each time the rebellion is brought up, people never think about the calamities, never think about Orochi. Their fear is not directed towards the calamities, it's not directed towards Orochi, but they always only talk about, and they always only truly fear, Kaido. And in fact, when for example Ashuradoji met Jack or Yasuye spoke to Orochi at his execution, they both openly expressed great disrespect. And so, for some reason, it seems Oda is trying to create an atmosphere where most of the strength of the opponents is concentrated in the Yonko himself, much more than any other arc we saw before. And in the specific context of this chapter, it is exactly this impression that Luffy fights with his spirit. Indeed, in a situation where prisoners blame him for suffering because of a weapon that not only causes incredible pain, but that also unwillingly transmits that pain to others just by touch, symbol of the overwhelming strength of the beast pirates embodied by Kaido, which they could never oppose, Luffy chooses to become infected, which is extremely meaningful because Mummy is a virus where people try to avoid the infected because if they touch them, they will become infected as well, even against their will. And this is the true key concept of the weapon. But Luffy completely destroys it by deciding himself to be infected, and so keeping, as always, his actions under the only control of his own will, even while suffering for a weapon that shouldn't allow a choice. Showing also how its overwhelming power and the desperation it causes, just like that of Kaido and the Beast Pirates in general, it's only an illusion. Indeed, when he says it has no effect at all, he is not talking about the virus itself. He is talking about it not having any effect on his spirit, no matter how painfully and strongly it can act on his body. He is giving the example that even if a power that is so strong to seem unbeatable truly exists, and even while constantly suffering because of that power itself, it is still always possible to fight, and nobody should never renounce to the principles they fight for, because if they do, their very choice to stop struggling will be the only true reason for their suffering. In this context, Luffy makes the prisoners realize not only that they are defending a life that is in fact only slavery instead of fighting for their own freedom and ideals, but also that in this way, contrasting any attempt of rebellion, they are in fact supporting Kaido himself. And since their very broken spirit comes from the fact they consider themselves too weak to bring down that monster of a dragon, the most meaningful panel of the chapter is where Luffy, evidently incredibly weakened by the mummy virus, states strongly, "We are here to defeat Kaido." And by doing this in that state, he not only shows them he is ready to fight alongside them against the Yonko with a spirit that won't be broken no matter what, but by defeating Babanuki so easily immediately after, he also shows that no matter how weak they can seem, victory is still always possible. Now, in a context where, especially in the New World, Oda made the Conqueror's Haki look kinda just like something possessed by strong people, this attitude Luffy dominated this chapter with is, in my opinion, the true expression of a person having what makes him naturally fit to be king. That type of leadership founded on the capability to inspire people by transmitting them the ideals he truly believes in and the strength to fight for those ideals. An attitude supported by a willpower that doesn't waver in face of anything, and of which the possibility to make people faint should not be the only evident expression. Because it's the ability to move people, the true power of a king. And in fact, Hyogoro called Luffy very powerful, not after seeing him fighting, not after seeing him using a Conqueror's Haki, and not even after seeing him using advanced Ryuo so easily when removing the collars, but instead after seeing him healing the broken spirit of the prisoners with his own. And this way to interpret power, distinguished from pure fighting potential, just like it happens for fights, constitutes a great part of how One Piece treats the theme of true strength, which is much more meaningful than what you usually find anywhere else. Now, leaving aside the great significance of this chapter, talking about the plot itself, the most important aspect is that Udon was conquered without Kaido, Orochi and the Calamities being aware. Also, considering who was involved in the situation at the prison, we can assume that everything happened away from the eyes of the traitor who revealed the meaning of Kinemon's message to the Shogun. However, even if this is clearly a great advantage, because the rebellion acquired an incredible amount of supporters with the opponents still not even aware of the existence of the rebellion itself, if the communications between Udon and the outside remain shut for too long, eventually the current situation in Udon will certainly be discovered, and so it is key for Kinemon's plan to maintain it a secret until the day of the Fire Festival. Indeed, if the news of all those prisoners who supported the Kotsuki clan 20 years ago being freed reaches Orochi, knowing how much he is scared of the return of the 9 Red Scabbards, he will probably raise his guard so much to make the attack probably too difficult to achieve. In this context, I think the character who will solve the situation and allow everything to remain a secret is Otama, and this could be her main role in the entire arc. Indeed, her capability to tame Smile users could allow to bring the Wardens on the Kotsuki side of the war, and so it would be possible to re-establish the communications with the outside, because even then the gifters, now on Tama's side, will give the upper ranks of the Wano country fake reports about the situation in Udon. Apart from that, I expect now Oda to concentrate on Zoro's side of the arc, and so on the situation at the Flower Capital, on the retrieving of Shusui, and on the final missing Red Scabbard, who apparently the anime opening confirmed to be Kyoshiro. And so, while waiting for all these new perspectives to unfold, that's all for this video. Thank you very much for watching, don't forget to leave a like, and make sure to watch also these other videos from the channel. See you next time. Jane.